So I'm gonna briefly go over a few things for block 10 because I know there's a lot of misconceptions with it. Um, I'm not gonna go over the whole thing. I probably will finish that on Monday, but remember it's due at midnight. So I'm trying my best to get as much information I can as possible because we still have to do block 11. Just a heads up that this unit is over next week. So we're going to get started with JavaScript fundamentals. Like HTML and CSS are important when it comes down to like web development and um, the full stack engineering, but the main scope of it deals with mostly JavaScript, Node, and like backend, like Postgres, SQL, all of that stuff. So you can get by with having some gaps in your HTML and CSS. You just have to understand the basics. So if you're struggling about it, I wouldn't put too much against your plate and say, all right, I suck at this, but understand that your main focus should be the JavaScript, the Node, and SQL queries when we get to all that stuff and like React and stuff. So try to put a point of emphasis on trying to learn those things because you can get a job with being terrible at HTML and CSS, but you can't get a job if you don't know how to use JavaScript in its entirety. Cool. Elham?
Did you mention that the Picasso art assignment is due tonight midnight or it's on Monday midnight?
Monday midnight. I think that's what I put. Hold on, let me check. Sorry. April 10th. Yes, April 10th, midnight.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so let me get started. Share my screen. All right, so here is what was expected from you. So they want you to create like this art gallery. So besides that, it's just basically drawing, but within CSS. So now you would draw some with a pencil and like create like images and stuff like that. We want you to use CSS and the things that you guys learned very quickly to go over certain topic, to utilize and make understanding of. So you see how this field, it has 3 boxes, and then you have this other box and this other small box. You have triangles and you have circles. So what they really want you to incorporate is Flexbox. So I'm using Flexbox because that's what I'm more familiar with. I don't really use, hold on 1 second. Can everybody see me? I got like a message that said, unable to establish Zoom connection. See me? Thumbs up.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so I personally just use Flexbox. I've never really used, like I use Grid sometimes, but Grid is mostly used for when you're creating like large like templates, which could be helpful in this case, but when you're working with row and columns, you're going to use Flexbox. You can get away with either or, but as you progress, you would learn either on both of the two. So personally for this project, I'm using Flex. So you're also required to use 3 various types of CSS units. I said it very briefly and quickly. So like the rem, the pixels, and the view hertz. So just remember that knowing how to incorporate that, the view hertz and the rem are all relative types. So they depend on a parent or they depend on a root element. And then we want you to be able to do media gallery form. So like use media queries to try to make sure that when you're adjusting your browser window, all things are adjusted for certain sizes. We didn't really talk about z-index and these z-index, and that's mostly based on positioning. And like I said, if I don't get into it today, I'm going to go over it on Monday. And then we're going to use common shorthands if applicable. So like margin. So sometimes margin and padding, they have one-liners that you can use as opposed to using the full direction. And then we also went through forms. So we want you to use forms on this. So if you look at it, use a form to basically add a submit buttons to collect names and emails. So that's basically what we want. And then we want you to upload the files with the Picasso, the CSS, and the form submitted to Canvas. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing I actually want to do is, so I have this basic folder, and then inside of that folder, so inside of that folder, I'm going to create an HTML template. So we already know how to do that. It's the shift that gives you the docu type. I'm going to say Picasso's painting, right? And then let me actually go live. Let me actually close some of my windows to make less of a clutter. And then move this bar here. And then close these tabs so I don't get lost. Oh, and another thing too, I want to recommend, there's this thing called CSS tricks where you can get shapes. So if you had issues with shapes, you can literally use those as references. So whenever you're trying to add shapes to something, you can add it. I'll put that in the chat, and then I'll put that into our here. CSS tricks is a great resource to, like, whenever you need to make an understanding of something, it's a great resource to like look at documentation. So you have the square shape, and it tells you how to create the square shape, how to create a rectangle shape, all those other things. So you don't have to actually copy this thing like the way they have it. This is just an example. I'm going to use their example, but you can make your own thing. You can make anything that you want. Just try to implement positioning, the flexbox or grid or anything, and shapes. You're trying to make something artistic as possible. It's just supposed to be a fun, interactive project to get you familiar with positioning. Right, so let me go to VS Code. I have my HTML template. The first thing I want to do is a link. So let me link my style sheet. Link, rel, style sheet, href, and then style.css. All right. All right, and then the first thing I want to do is I want to create the boxes. So like I said before, this thing right here, right? It's all boxes. Yeah, so usually when you create CSS, the first thing you do is you try to examine the boxes you have. So we have a box here. This is a section. We have another section here, and then a section on the bottom. So I'm going to create 3 boxes for that. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to use divs. I'll create 3 divs. And then inside of it, I want to create boxes. So div 1, and I'm going to do box 1. And I'm going to put 3 of them down. So shift option down. And then change it to 2 and 3. And the reason why I'm doing this, so when I go live, I want to see the boxes. So remember, since they're divs, they're block level elements, so they're going to lay on top of each other, right? Then if I go back to our code, our little, or this one, yeah, if I go back to this, we have these 3 boxes. Then I have this other box right here, this middle box. So I'm going to create a section for that. So this div, because I want to do flexbox. So remember, I need a parent to make it display flex so they can lay in this row pattern. And then I want to do another section in the middle from this parent. So another section that's going to be this main middle section right here. So I have div, right? And then I'm just going to say main box. And then I'm going to do a bottom. So I want this little footer bottom here too. So div, say bottom box. And I'm going to delete these inner content. I'm just doing this so I can see on my image what I have. So let me zoom in a bit on this too. So you see box 1, box 2, box 3, main box, bottom box, right? All right, so I actually should have put classes around this. I'm gonna put class. I'm gonna call this top row. And then I'm gonna call this another class and call this mid row. And then I'm gonna call this another class. And this is going to be bottom row, right? And the reason why I'm doing this is so I can label each individual section. So each individual section is styled. I forgot my div. Sorry. Elham, yes.
Um, so you're using class for only one div. Is there a specific reason why you're not using ID for this?
So say for example, if I wanted to just copy it, I mean, yeah, I could use ID for it, but say for example, if I wanted to add these styles to more areas, I'm just using class to just keep it that simple instead of like going back and modifying, oh, I want to repeat that code. I'm just going to use a class. So by default, I just traditionally just use classes. But when it's just one single thing that I know, like a main or a header or a bar or something like that, I would do it. But when I'm doing groupings of items, I mostly always use class. But in a technical sense, you would use ID. I don't go to that explicit extent, but yeah,
Gotcha. Thank you.
yeah. So top row, box, mid row, and bottom, right? So then what I like to do is I like to make sure that I put a border around everything so I can see it. So I'm going to do div and I'm going to select. So all the divs, I want to have a border. I'm going to say 1 pixel solid blue. And this is so I can see every box that I have. So with this particular box right here, I have box 1, box 2, box 3. I want them to all be on the same line. So if you see it right here, right? We have this box. This is going to be box 1, box 2, box 3. Does anybody remember how we position them all on the same level? Like, how can I do that? Elham.
Inline block.
We can use n-line block, but for this particular case, they want us to use flex or grid. So how can we incorporate grid or flex in this?
We could use both. Flex would work too. For the 3 boxes on the top.
Yeah. So we can do. Oh, sorry, this question. Rashad. Yes.
You can do display flex, and after display flex, let me go, because I had did the project. Let me go to my code. But yeah, you could do display flex, and
where would I do display flex on?
the class top row.
Top row.
So you'll do dot top row.
Why would I do it on top row? Why can't I do it on the children?
Because it's the parent.
Yeah. So when I do display flex, we're going to see all of them are going to change their direction to a row format. So let me move this a bit. Is it? And hit save. And you see box 1, box 2, box 3, all are on the same level of inline. So these makes these 3 boxes be in a row format, right? So then I can exit out this. I have this row format. Now the first thing I want to do, the next thing I want to do is I want to, let me add some height on each of these items. So let's say I want to add some height on these divs. How can I select these? So I want these divs on this HTML. So I want every div within this HTML to be affected by a certain styling. Elham.
You could do top row and then the name of the div.
Yep, you can do top row, the name of the div, or we can do top row, this div. The reason, what this does is it basically says, I want to only select divs inside of this top row class. So I want to select divs only in this top row class. And those are, only divs in that top row class can be affected by these styles. So I'm going to add a height. So let me add a background color. Actually, I can just do top row and add height, sorry. Let me add a height of 100 pixels, right? And then let's go back to our styling. So I added 100 pixel, and then I'm going to add background color. So background color, sky blue. All right. So I have 100 pixels, right? Then what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have all this extra space. Let me actually add color for every box. So the main box, I want to add color to it. So we can do, was it mid-row?
It was.
And then I can say height 400 pixels. And then background color sky blue. And then I can say bottom row. This is bottom box right here. And then I can say height of 20 pixels. And then a background color of yellow green. And then I'm basically just trying to make this little thing right here, right? All right, so another thing I want to do is that I want to make sure that the space between all my block elements are like evenly distributed out. So where is it? So we have top row, and I want to make, so basically every child, I want them to have even amount of space. So we talked about this very briefly, but what we can do is we can use this flex property, and we can assign it to this child and give it a 1. And what this does is it gives whatever space we have, it's going to evenly distribute the space around each box. Oh, sorry, I actually saved the wrong one. So now I have this box where all the space is evenly distributed out between boxes. Let's say if I wanted to make something grow, like if I added, let me add a class here, and I'll say special. Right? I can take the special class and I can have it grow twice as big. So if I say special and I say flex 2, or where is it? Flex special. Why is this not working? Hold on 1 second. Oh. So flex point div, I think it has to go before, does it? No. But wait, yeah, so basically what's supposed to happen is that whenever I add a class to one of these individual divs, this special class, the way the flex property works is that as this, like one is evenly distribute them out. If I put a 2, I can make it twice as big. If I put a 3, it makes it twice as big, 3 times as big. So we can individually make other elements grow respect to a certain size. So that's basically all what it is. So we have this top row div. I have a flex of 1 because I want them to evenly distribute out, right? And then if I look back at my block, I want to have them to have space. So I want to have this whole top row. I want space between the top row and this main mid row. Does anybody remember what property is basically like a force field that separates elements between each other? Oh, sorry. Elias.
Sorry, this is actually a question before you asked that question.
Yeah.
For top row with div, why is the div included?
Why is it different? So I want only, so what this does is it selects, so within this class is top row. I want to only select the children in this class of top row that are divs.
Oh, I see.
Top row divs. So that greater than symbol basically says I want to select all the children, whatever children that are top row descendants, style them the same way accordingly. That's what it is.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Zach.
I think to answer your question, would you be using margin?
Correct. You're going to use margin. We're going to put margin on where we want margin. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong screen. We want margin. We want margin separating on this bottom, right? So if I go to top row, I add margin bottom. So if I add margin 10 pixels right this, it adds space everywhere. It adds it on the left, right, top, bottom. I don't want that. I just want margin on the bottom. So I can single-handedly just point out margin bottom.
Would it matter if you put that margin on the second top row? Because when I did it on mine, I was able to create spaces between the boxes and everything, where the div was at basically.
On the second top row, what do you mean by that?
With the greater than and the div, that's where I did mine's at.
Yeah, so I'm going to put margin there. Oh, yeah. So if I did margin 10 pixels, I don't want margin actually on everything around it. I don't want this extra space in between. I only want margin on this middle one. If I look at the diagram. So the diagram, how everything is spaced on the corners, they're spaced evenly. When I add margin, it adds space both ways. So it adds space on the left, top, right, bottom. I only want margin on this middle element. And that's when I'm going to use like the other selector they want us to use with mchild. So mchild can directly make us select one individual element I have and add margin left and right to it so it doesn't affect the other two. But you can do it any way you want. So anything you would like to do, it works. So mostly, so like what this project, it just wants you to be able to use like different types of like selectors and shorthand, like hierarchical or selectors in within your code. I'm just trying to implement everything within it. But if you put margin and it added that space that you like, you can do it that way. There's many ways to do something. So this margin 10, as you can see, it adds space like right here. I want this main box and everything to all be aligned. So I only want margin here and here. So let me comment this out. I can use this mchild property. So mchild, and we talked about this briefly. All right, so what mchild does, it allows us to select elements if they're even, odd. So I can like say, for example, NBA players that won the most championship. I can put a border around the first three, or I can put a border around all the even, or I can just select the second child. And that's basically what it's doing right here. So all the li tags that are the first three, n minus plus 3, I'm going to select that. So I'm going to do that for top row. So for top row, say top row greater than div, and then mchild. So what I'm saying is that in my top row, I want the child of top row. So I can actually remove this special. I don't need that. I want the child of top row, right? I want the second child. I only want to select this box too. So top row, descendant, div, mchild, and I'm going to put 2. So the second child of that parent. And what I want to do is I'm going to add margin left and right in between it. Margin left. Oh, sorry, what am I doing? So left, I'll say 10 pixels, margin right, and then 10 pixels. And you see, I only added margin to the left and right side of that particular child. Right? So we can also do this shorthand. So they want shorthand notation. So if you don't know, margin does things top, it does it in clockwise order. So top, right, bottom, and left. I can actually assign the margin properties as such. So I can say margin 0, 0, 0, 10 pixels, 0, 10 pixels. And then this could also give me the same result. Yeah. So if they said shorthand notation, that's a shorthand notation for you. So you can do it that way, or you can just do it this other way. It's either or, it's up to your discretion. So you see, we have these box, I have these spaces. So it's, you see, it's coming together a little bit. Where is it? Yeah, so getting similar to that. Next thing I want to do is, what else? So I have this boxes, there's space. I have the individual space here. I have this other space. Let me see what else they want. I need to add some margin here. If you see, it has some little space below. So I can add some margin top to that bottom row, or margin bottom. So should I do mid row bar? Yeah, I'll do mid. So I'll do margin bottom. I'll do 10 pixels. Sorry. And then I added some space here. Cool. This is like the basic template of what you should have. And then to create circles, we can do, there's this thing called border radius, and border radius allows us to create circles. You can also follow this template. You have a width, you have a height, a background, and then a border radius. It's always border radius 50%. So 50% of what the circle, and so that gives us a round circle. So let me actually create another div class. Do dot circle. Right. And then inside of here, I can create circle. And then say you do a width of 50% or 50 pixels. And then a height of 50 pixels. And then a background color of yellow. And then a border radius of 50%. And let's go to this Picasso. You're going to see, like, at the bottom, it's going to be like a yellow little circle. And see our yellow circle. Cool. And this is basically what the starting of what it should be like. Then you're going to take positioning and you're just going to orient things accordingly. I'll do that on Monday. I don't want to get into two, but if you guys worked with that, great job on trying to implement that on your own. But what we're going to do is use positioning to basically have like elements overlap one another and stack on top of each other. So that's basically what the premise of what this project is, what it wants you to do. Cool. Any questions on that? Like I said, everybody does things differently. You can do anything any way you want. You don't have to follow the way I do it. What works for your mind is what you should do. Pete.
I do have a question. So are we making this exact portrait, or can we make like other things?
No. Yeah. So like, you're just doing your own thing. I did it because I'm not creative and I just follow their template. I don't have time to think about drawing something on the spot. I would have to draw something and then sketch it out and then try to implement it. I can't think that way. So I just copied what they gave you. This is just a resource that they gave you to use.
I see. So far, I just made a soccer field with it.
Yeah, so like if you're creative and you did it, that's awesome. If you create your own, kudos to you. Like that's really good. That's really good. I can't do that, but great work. All right, any other questions? This is also due on, so I said midnight Monday. So if you haven't started, this is just to get you guys started on what to build or what to anticipate to. Elham, yes.
So the units you used, pixels, are they responsive when you shrink the window? They're gonna adapt to the window size.
So for these in particular, I would probably use media queries because yes, I did use pixels for this. I mostly want to use like rem. Like rem is mostly for font size. The margin and padding, I could change that to M, like M units, so I can adjust those. But other than that, yeah, so pixels are fine. You would just probably just do a media query, like add media, and then add the stylings for it if you want to change it. But if you want to remove that headache, you can just add M and rem to it as well.
So if we use VH and VW. How does that work? That's pretty much responsive. Do we still need to use the media inquiry?
So
Queries?
if they want you to use it, if they just said responsive, then that's fine. If you use VHz and yeah, VH and VW, that's cool. I don't see anything as long as it's responsive. But also just try to get in the handle of trying to learn how to use media queries a little bit, because that's something you are going to see on the job a lot.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, so this is just the basically starter of it. Finish the rest on Monday. I don't want to take away from today's actual lecture. Any questions on this in general? All right. So what you all are going to be doing is, so like I said, this unit is completely done. You guys are going to go on to, so like if you haven't worked with JavaScript before, I recommend you try like probably this weekend, go over some of these, the basics of JavaScript, because JavaScript is very, very, like it's very tricky to try to understand. I'm not trying to fear you. This is usually the section that people usually struggle with the most. HTML, CSS seems difficult, but JavaScript is hard. And I'm just trying to be honest as much. I'm not trying to put fear in you, but just really take time to try to understand. Like we went over like creating like let, if, like we did let, so we declare variables and all that other sort, but we didn't really go into detail and it was so long ago. So try to get a refresher of like doing basic things within JavaScript as much as possible. All right, so this is block 11. And what block 11, what we're doing is we're working on a GitHub project. So you're basically going to do what you did for personal project 1, but this time you're going to be working amongst peers, right? And this project is going to be due next week, I think like Thursday, I think. So yeah, so let's get started. All right. All right, so objective. So after today's lesson, you should be able to generate a GitHub project and a repository to use for the course and collaborate with a team or partner to create a project plan for the upcoming project. So just like how you use the project board, you're going to be doing the same things, but you're going to be working with alongside someone in creating a project board, right? So we'll open up block 11. So what's in it for me? So the vital importance of working as a team is that it garners the overall success of the organization. A lot of things can't be done alone. Like you may think that some engineers are very experienced and they can do the whole thing by themselves, but a team is very instrumental in creating the best product as much as possible, as well as making a unit, like a very unified organization. Being able to work together can help brainstorm ideas, things that you're tricked on, things that you're struggling with. The ability to basically speak things out amongst others allows you to grow as an engineer as well. You learn things quickly from people. All right, so some of the industry standards on what we use for these types of collaborations is Git. So Git allows us, so like you guys worked with Git, like basic Git commands and stuff like that. The reason why you have commit messages is because just in case people see your code that you created, you can describe it. And you also can track changes. You can track to see what people did throughout the course. So there's another thing I also want to recommend. So if you don't have it, within VS Code, you should install Git Lens. I don't know if I said that already, but Git Lens is a very good resource. Is it Git Lens? Yeah, Git Lens. And what this does, it allows you to see who did what. So if I go back to this, I can hover over it, or I didn't make commits. I have to go back to my other one. So CD. Yeah, so if I go to like this box model, but you see it says you, and it shows my GitHub, and it shows me the day I did it, and it shows the commit and the files that I've changes. So click to see the commit actions, open them on GitHub, and it tells me everything or the commits that I did. And it's a great way to keep track of things when you're working as a team. So if someone did a bug, you know who to blame it on. That's basically what I'm saying. It snitches on you. So there, hold on. I think the cohort GitHub has the extensions. So like extensions, there's a lot of them. And so as we progress through the course, we usually give what, like, it's hard to think of like what you should have, but you should have the pre-base of ones you should have is like prettier. The ones you already should have installed now, like prettier now. We didn't do ESLint, but just the basics, like styling and all that other story. When we get to JavaScript, all like those things, you know what? I'll take time of my life and I'll do it for you. My bad. I'll just do something for that. I'll come up with a list and create it for you all. All right, so back to this industry standard. So yeah, so the whole point of this is so you can use Git, so you can basically view other people's work, track changes, and collaborate. You're going to do constant screen sharing. So if you're not comfortable with screen sharing, that is something that you need to get a hang of, because it allows you to basically see where other people, what other people are doing. Like there's a lot of times when I'm even instructing and I can't even find the error myself because I don't know, when all eyes are on me, it's hard to debug. So when you all see it, it's easier for that one person to basically be like, hey, you have a bug here. It doesn't mean that one person's better than the other. It just means that while you're focusing on code, you can't really concentrate on all things. So screen sharing allows different types of communication and collaboration, and allows everybody to work cohesively. All right. IDE sharing. So writing code in real time, it allows for remote pairing. So we use Visual Code for IDE sharing. And then here's an example of what the basic Git workflow. So Git workflow is a recipe of how to use Git to accomplish your work in a consistent manner. So you're going to create a working directory. Once you make your changes, you're going to add them. When you add them to the staging area. So this is basically when you first started, you create the working directory. So you're going to initialize and create your repo. You can clone it. You can create a Git init folder. Once you do that, you do the changes that you want for your file. Once you make your first commit, the first thing you do is do Git status. You'll do Git status. It tells you, all right, these changes have not been added to my your staging area yet. So you're going to do Git add. Git add then adds it to the staging area. That's when it turns green. Once you do Git add, you're then going to write a commit message. You're going to say, all right, git commit -m or git commit to have the whole template flow. And then you're going to write your commit message. Feat created this navbar, or style, or chore fix some bugs or something like that. Then once you do that, you're going to do git push, right? You're then going to commit, it sends it to your local Git repository, then you do git push. Once you do git push, this then sends it to the remote repository on GitHub. So Git allows us to do this version control system on our local computer and allows us to transfer information to our remote repository on GitHub. And then the process of this cycle goes through. So this checkout is when you create branches. So every time you create a branch, you're going to start all over with this working directory, staging areas, commits. Then you're going to go back to your main and make these pull changes. So it's this overall productive manner, this workflow. These same commands you're going to use constantly over and over again. So you have a working directory, staging area, local Git, and then Git remote repository. Elham.
I have a question about the repositories and branches. So when I was working on my project, I had to create branches on my local directories, and whenever I was done with it, I was pushing the whole branch to my remote GitHub, and I would create that branch in my remote GitHub. Then when I was switching branches back to my main on my local computer, all the changes I brought was gone. So then I figured out I could merge those branches and then delete the branch that I don't need anymore. Is that the right way to do that, or there is another workflow for that?
You didn't do git pull. So when you went to your main branch, you forgot to do git pull. Your branch was behind. So merging it is another way of doing it. But when you push it onto GitHub and you merged it onto your remote, you're able to, on your local, it needs to get those updated changes. So when you do git pull, it brings down the latest and then it updates it for you on your main.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool. But it's good that you picked up git merge, because git merge is a great thing that always gets hidden and lost in translation. But yeah, you can do a git pull. Yes, Zach.
In the matrix of the big picture, where does the net let leaf fly, what does that actually come into play at?
So Netlify has nothing to do with the Git. Netlify is just being able to host, like display, like say for example, you go to google.com, it's deploying your web application so people can see it. You can give them a URL link and they can go to the web page. That's what it is. That's the whole point of what Netlify does.
Okay.
Pete.
So I think we had I had a conversation with it was one of the instructors, right? I feel bad for forgetting, but anyway. Is Netlify able to pull or automatically pull any changes within the repository you created?
I think so. Not sure. That I don't know. Netlify, the reason why I don't like Netlify, I rather deploying through like we used to have Heroku, like other website, like when you guys get into backend, those deploys are they happen in real time. It's more in sync with how you do with work. I'm thinking with Netlify, you probably would have to update. I haven't really worked with Netlify like that. Like I said, like when you become more full stack, you stay away from like Netlify application. You don't usually do vanilla JavaScript, but when you deploy, you want things to happen in real time. So I think maybe when you do it with your GitHub, if you link your GitHub, that allows you to do it within real time.
I see. Okay, I'll probably have to look into it because I mean, if there's no other option, I may have to redeploy it again. But for some reason, I do have it linked, and it's able to display URL for me to be able to go into the application, but I don't think it's able to capture any changes. So I mean, maybe something from my end, but I have to look into it further. Thank you, though.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me look that up. I actually should know that. Yeah, so you have to do it within GitHub. So instead of doing the little drag and drop, you do it within GitHub, and the clone repo, as that updates, it would redeploy it for you. And that's a process I can help you with individually if you'd like. Yeah. All right, so yeah, this is like the basic template workflow of how Git works. So you create a branch, Git checkout or Git switch, whatever you like, and then you create the working directory, staging area, and local commits. So, and then you pull your changes and you follow this consistent workflow all the time. This is legit the same recipe. So in the beginning, when you guys are struggling with Git, you may not, because you don't really understand the commands, but they're going to be like 4 commands that you remember all the time. Now it's going to be git status, git add, git commit, and git pull, and then git fetch too, but you can get away with that. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is git init. So this initialize a Git repository. So you guys probably have experience where when you're creating a GitHub repo, when you are working on a file on your computer and it says this does not have a local, this does not have a Git folder for you to do those Git commands. So in order for you to use Git on anything locally, you guys installed Git with your little I forgot when you guys did the machine setup. I forgot the name of that thing that they had, but you did the machine setup, it installed Git onto your computer. That allowed you to basically initialize, so homebrew, so you can basically initialize Git and it creates a folder. Once that folder is within that subdirectory, so once I create a folder, so you know when we create directories within Git, right? And why did Zoom change? Let me see if it will show it. So if I type ls, nope, it doesn't show it. But once you create a folder within Git, right? Or create a folder within your terminal, that folder, let me just do this differently. So I'll go here, cd documents. And then I'm just gonna say, make directory, git demo, right? And then ls cd git demo. All right, so usually what you do is you're going to type git init. Git init initialize and creates this little folder, right? It initializes a GitHub repository. Oh, I did it on my computer. I have to delete that. So, no, I actually did it on the right one. Sorry. So once it initializes a repo, let me see, does it show it? No. All right. So it initializes this folder that allows me to do git add and then git commit and get stuff like that. That's how I'm able to do it. If I don't initialize a Git repo, initialize GitHub or Git, I can't do these Git commands, and you're going to get an error, and I'll show you that in real time. But I just want to make sure that you understand that this folder is what allows you to do all these Git basic commands like Git clone, all that other stuff. Or you can use Git clone on anything when you bring it down from GitHub, but you can't do like Git status or Git push on anything that has not been initialized as a Git working repository. So this git init creates a new Git repository, creates this .git folder for you to use so you can do all your Git commands. Then it stores all the information within that folder, and then that sends up to GitHub for you. Git clone, we've worked with that before. This allows you to create a copy from your GitHub. So that's how we can take other repos from what other people created, and we can basically use them. So especially when you get a job, majority of the time, you're going to clone the working repository that they have. You're not going to create a new repository because they already have an application that's already been out there, unless you work for a brand new company, you're part of the startup. But you're going to clone their working repository, and that allows you to make changes to that same working repository. Yes, Rashad.
So when you created the folder, right? So let's say I'm in my terminal, I create a folder, and I decide to go to GitHub, and I create a repository, and I clone the repository to the folder that I created. At that point, you don't have to do git init.
Yeah, so when you do git clone, I don't have to do git init because you already cloned it from the working repository. But traditionally, like I think you spoke about this before. He's like, I did my setup differently. The way you did your setup before, when he gave you that long block of code, there's this git init line, and it's basically creating that for you. So when I use git init, I just have to attach a remote host key to that repository. That's how it knows how to make the link. But if you do it the whole block with the clone, all that setup is for you. And I'm going to show an example of that today.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you. It is hidden. Thank you for that. So the git, yeah, so Command Shift plus. Let me actually do that.
That's Command Shift and dot.
Command Shift and plus. What'd you say? Or dot?
Dot.
Command Shift.
That actually you have to go to the Finder.
VS Code. Oh, VS Code.
I used Finder for that. On the Finder, if you press Command Shift and dot, it will basically show you all the hidden files. That's how I actually practiced with it. I was deleting it and I was initializing it again.
Or is it a GitHub demo one that I have? GitHub demo.
I think I saw a Git demo.
Yeah, I think I just saw it too.
It was just Git demo.
To your far right.
So
It was named as Git demo only.
So was it Git? Oh, sorry. Thanks. Git demo. All right, thank you. All right, so was it Command Shift dot?
Yes. It has to be inside the folder.
All right, there you go. That's it. That's a little folder. Thank you for that. Yeah, but this little folder allows you to create these Git commands. It allows you to do like Git add, Git push, Git commit, all that stuff. If you don't have that folder, GitHub's basically going to scream at you and be like, this isn't a Git repository. What are you doing? You can't do these commands on it. So this allows you to do all that functionality. Thanks, Alham. Appreciate it. Yeah. All right. And then, yeah, so follow the same thing. So write, rinse, repeat. So git add, git commit, git status. Every time, like for me personally, I always get status. Regardless, even if I don't need it, I get status. And I like to know exactly where I am on my Git journey. So if I'm in my record directory, the first thing I do is get status. Then it tells me that I haven't staged anything yet. I git add. Then once I git add, I do get status. Then it tells me I need to make a commit. So then I make a commit. Once I make a commit, I then like, all right, I want to push these changes, git status, then I do git push. And then I follow the same cycle over again. I like to know along the way, because you never know that if you didn't stage anything yet, or if you haven't had anything, what anybody can talk to you or speak to you and like basically make you lose your course of whatever you're trying to do. But by constantly using git status, it allows you to have an overall better flow. Yes, Elham.
So question about reviewing the commits or the history. I'm able to do it on my repository, the ones I create. If I share my repository, even if it's public, to someone else, a friend, will they be able to view the history of the commits, the history of the changes I brought?
Yeah, you can always see whatever anybody does. So let's say if so CD, let's go to CD, LS CD 22, 7, CD, adventure, away. Then I go to code, right? So this is a project that I worked with someone else with. And then you can see literally all the histories that they had. So this is that person, this is their commits. And I can go to click to see what change files. Where is it? Sorry, I'm all typing too quickly. Yeah, so I go to that repository, open commit on GitHub, and I can see every little logs of changes that that person created.
Is that person added to that repository, or
Yeah,
is it
that's another thing that you're going to do too. You're going to add, we're going to be adding people to the repositories. That's where we're going to be linking. You're going to make them contributors.
So if they're not a contributor, or if they're not added to that repository, will they be still able to see that? For example, for my project, when I submitted that, one of the rubric items was to have different commits, different branches. So how will you be, or anyone else who's going to review that, will be able to view all those? When I tried on someone else's repository, I wasn't able to view anything.
Yeah, like that's something we're going to get into. So like you have to make them a collaborator. So the only way you can add that, that's how GitHub protects you. So you have to make them, give them access to that repo. If you don't give them access, they're not going to be allowed to touch anything, because that's going to basically give anybody, when you have a public repo, to go in and change and adjust your work.
Gotcha. Okay, so whenever they're reviewing our assignments, someone's going to request access?
No, not necessarily. When you're working as a team, that's usually the first thing you do. You add every participant. One person creates the repo, and you just add people. So you just add, like you just add people to it as it goes. That's usually what you do.
Thank you.
No problem. And that's actually what you're going to be doing today, actually. So great question. All right. So the benefits of working with GitHub, it just makes changes directly to the main branch. It decreases human error and this constant lead of miscommunication. So by having things on GitHub, creating proper commit messages, it allows the overall flow of building projects. It makes it easier. You can have people assigned to certain features, and then once they complete those certain tasks, you then all collaborate, then make them together. Remember, like Rome wasn't built in a day, and each person has their own part. Each person's assigned something within the project building's atmosphere. All right. So like project organization tools. So we're using GitHub projects. When you all get to jobs, like my company that I work for, we use Jira. There's Asana, there's Monday, there's Trello. Trello boards are pretty good, cool too. It depends on what works for you, but we use GitHub projects as a way to track it. And the same way how you guys create those little tickets and those user stories, that's how you track your projects. You have them, you tell them you have the tasks that you want completed for a certain assignment, and then you're going to move them along the trend on your GitHub organization. So it's that same overall flow that you guys were doing solo. It was very, it didn't seem necessary when you all were doing it by yourselves, because that's technically not what you do, but we just want you guys to get in that flow before you guys can start working as pairs. Cool. And then we talked about this agile scrum board system. So this is just a visual representation of like the work that can be done for a single sprint. Remember, a sprint is basically the amount of time you have for a particular project or feature to be completed. Some organizations have 2 weeks, some take a month, some takes 3 weeks. It depends on what you have. And what this does is that you have tickets, like you see in this backlog, and you assign them to each individual person. And then you create these user stories. User stories are basically, say, for example, as a user, I want to be able to log into the platform. That's a user story. So you're going to create the functionality of logging in. That can go in with creating the backend information, creating the front end information. All of that comes together. It's one story that you build together, and you're going to create multiple branches to help create that one story. And then once that story is done, while you're working on, you're going to put in to do, and then in progress. Then after the in progress section, you need to get it verified. People on your team have to verify it. Remember, 3, 4 eyes, 6 eyes are better than one. Things that you may not see, other people may be able to see. Things that you may not know how to implement properly, you may have someone on your team that may be well-versed in that. So by learning and taking that constructive feedback, it helps you grow as an engineer. Because every time, at least for me, every time when I had like a senior engineer grade my work, I felt like it wasn't the same thing that they had to check me for in the long run. I've always learned from what they told me to. So in the beginning, it's going to be, I know it's going to be very like disheartening. They're going to like literally destroy your work and be like, this is bad, this is terrible. But when you take that constructive feedback, you're going to grow from it. Every single time when you create tickets and follow this agile system, you grow from every time when someone verifies your work. And it becomes less and less of the nitpicks and more of you building more things based on strength. Right? Then after that is done. Once you complete it done, you put it in the done file. This agile system is very important with regards to like working as in a team when you have an engineer manager, because that's how they track your work too. So say, for example, you are working, especially when you work remotely, they never know what you're doing. They can't just stare at you like, oh, this person's working. Where your tickets are in position on the board is how they track you. At least for my my job, my manager will be like, I see you're still in the to-do section. It's been 2 days for that ticket. Do you need help? And that's the assistance that they will guide me, or we'll go into retrospect about that. But it allows them to see where you are in your progression towards the sprint. So you can ensure that you're on the right pace of completing the whole sprint. And it also keeps you organized. So remember, you need at least 4 columns, stories to do, in progress, verifying, done. These stories describe one or more features of a product, and there are tasks that have not been started, right? And then you're going to mark all these things as done when you complete them. Tasks and subtasks live within the 4 columns. So when you're creating subtasks within each user story, they have to stay within this scope of this. Hold on, let me get my little pencil. They have to stay within this scope, sorry, but they have to stay within that. Oh, no, they don't track your mouse pad movement, but they just track to see where you are within the board. So yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first started, I didn't move anything within the board because I wasn't used to it. And then my manager called me out on it, was like, hey, it looks like you're not doing any work. But I was like, I am doing work. Please move your things so I can track your progress. So it's just those things like that. All right. So after today's lesson, you should be able to generate a GitHub project and a repo to use for projects. And you're going to collaborate with your team and your partner to create a project plan for the upcoming project. And what we mean by your upcoming project is this one right here. So we go to modules. Did I open it? 12. Yep. Career simulation. You're going to be building this personal website. So see how we had the Sophie template, and it's about, and you guys did the about, portfolio. Hopefully everything's completed within this space. Once we have Sophie, we want to actually expand on what Sophie has. So for this personal site, we want to create a form. So it says, our design and executive teams have requested that everybody use CSS Grid or Flex to proportional units and some advanced styling to show off their abilities, and includes a new web page of a contact form. So you can create a contact form so people can contact you. So you and a partner within your dev team will work with each other to develop a plan to enhance each of your personal websites, along with tickets in GitHub for each task that needs to be completed. So please make sure all code changes in the same GitHub repository as your original site in the new branches. we want you to submit pull requests and have your partner review them, and also approve each task as it's completed. Submit your GitHub repo link when you're finished, as well as don't hesitate to reach out if you need more info. So you're going to create this contact form, right? That you're going to be working with a partner. So your partner, you're going to assign your partner to your repo, and your partner is going to assign you to their repo. And then once you do that, you're going to create this form, and you're going to have tasks for like what you want created for each feature. And then once you do that, you're going to submit what you guys did and show that you guys collaborate together to create that form. Hold on, I see questions. All right. Yeah, so same thing as usual. So CSS grid, various kinds of CSS units, all that other stuff in the contract form. So design and build an HTML form with a variety of input types. Forms must have a functional submit button leading to another page. And also really get into the use of team dynamics, collaborate with your partner to build a project plan so you guys can know how to construct it. By planning, it allows everything to become easier. Cool. All right. So like 3 people. Usually if it is 3 people, I don't know how that's going to work, but 3 people, maybe it'll be 2 and 1 reviewing things. We'll get to that when that situation happens, but yeah, hopefully it's paired accurately, but there could be a group that could have 3. And with that case, you're probably going to you guys probably would divide up the task evenly. So one person would do one task, another person would do that. You just basically split it. You can have multiple people working on something. So you can basically take each task and just have someone split up the task accordingly, but just make it an even amount so everybody can contribute the same amount. All right, I can help you with that later, Candace. Elham.
We're gonna add people to our current repository we made for that project, and then create new tasks and assign it to people, if I'm not mistaken. Is this how you want us to do?
Yep, and then they're gonna also assign you the tasks on their repository as well. So you're gonna assign each other tasks on each of your own repos.
Okay, so we're gonna
yeah.
and then we're gonna make something similar, and we all going to contribute towards it, and then we all gonna use that for our web pages.
Yeah, it's basically it can be the same thing, but it's just that we want you to collaborate on each other's projects.
Right. Still trying to get the idea of how they can collaborate. So they're working on their website and I'm working on my website. It's like 2 different websites. So which part is the collaboration part over here?
So the thing about it is that once they make you a collaborator, you can, when you clone their repo, you're going to clone their repo. And then you're going to make those changes once on the ticket. So you guys have that project board. You're going to follow along with the project board. And whatever a ticket they have assigned for you to do for their project, you do it. And then you create pull requests, and then they review it, and then they accept it if they like the change. Once they do the change, they do the same thing for your project, vice versa. So it's just a constant collaboration between multiple partners on each other's project. We just want that we'll get in the habit of working together as a team on different scopes of projects.
Got you. And it's 2 people work with each other, if I'm not mistaken, or all 4 people will collaborate with each other.
So it should be 2. If there's a chance that there is 3, then we would have to accommodate for that. But it's just, it should be pair programming, but at the same time, though, we may have an offset because we've lost some people. So if that's the case, those certain groups, we would implement that.
Got you. All right, thank you.
All right. So, all right. So the first thing you can do is you're going to create a repository. So the first thing you go to create a repository, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can do the plus way and do new repository, right? And you guys should already have repositories, but this is just getting you in the habit of working with repositories. So you're going to have a repository name. You can have an owner. I choose mine. You're going to add a description. So I'll say, hello world, right? We're gonna make it public. You can choose your visibility based on anything. Yes, had it, but if you're sharing, unless they're not, if they're not a collaborator, that means you have to share it in order for them to see it. If not, then they're going to be able to, anybody can have access to it. So I always keep everything public unless it's like some secret information. It's nothing I need to hide. And then you're going to initialize it with a README. Like you can add a README, and then you can create the repo. Initialize with a README. And then did I forget? Oh, I forgot the name. Hello world. Yes, Elham.
Could you tell us what's that @gitignore? Is that
So
something?
gitignore is basically whenever you have files, so like especially when we get into Node, there's things that you don't want on your GitHub repo, your remote repository, to be displayed. Like say for example, when we have node modules, that is a big package thing that basically takes a lot of space and memory. So instead of adding that to your GitHub repo when you're pushing things up, you can ignore certain files. So that's basically what gitignore does. With Mac, there's this issue with this DS store. So let me see where I have a gitignore somewhere. And then I'll do to week 6. And then ls. Nope, that's not the one. Wait, do I have one in here? The adventure away. 1 second. Yeah. So I have a gitignore right here. So you see, I have, so for this, so when you get to React, and it's like when you work with like other JavaScript files, there's sometimes you don't want to put everything onto your GitHub repository. This stuff can be downloaded by individual people remotely. So I add node modules to my gitignore. If I go to my node modules right here, it's this big thing of all these different types of packages. So by preventing that, from blocking that, from ignoring that file, every time a user downloads my file, they just have to do sorry, what is it? Node install, npm node or node install, whatever. They have to download the packages themselves internally instead of me adding this to their repo. So it's just a way to just basically say files that I don't want on my GitHub repo, I can ignore them. So there's another one called DS store. You're going to see that a lot. That is unnecessary. It's like some random thing that only comes with Mac. So that would be on your gitignore file. It's just files that you don't want on GitHub. So if I go to github.com and I go to like one of my repositories, where's that adventure away?
Yes, I do have that DSS store. I wanted to get rid of that so badly. That works for me then.
Yeah, so you see how, because I put node modules on gitignore, it's not on my GitHub, on my remote GitHub repo. But if I didn't, you would see a node modules folder here. So it's just a way to just remove files that I don't want to have access to. Like I don't want on my GitHub repo, unnecessary files. You only want to keep things that are necessary for the project development. Make sense?
Gotcha. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, that was a great question. Hello world. In the description, you always have a title. Then you add a file README. Either way, you can do this anyway. So let me actually create this on my computer. So I go to documents, ls, so cd. I'm going to make a directory, GitHub demo, cd into GitHub demo, right? And then here it is. So what I want to do is, the first thing I want to do, so let me clear this out, is I want to initialize GitHub so I can be able to use it. So the first thing I need to do is do git init, and this initialize a repository. So the next thing I want to do is, so I want to check git status. No commits yet. I'm on branch main. So I want to git add. Then I want to do a git commit -m. And this is just going to be my first initial commit. And this is how you create it within your computer, right? First initial commit. Then I go to GitHub, right? And then I can create a repo here. I can say new repository. Right? And then I can say GitHub demo. I'm going to pick an owner. And then I'm going to make it public. And then I'm going to go to create repository. Right? Then it's going to give me all this boilerplate code. Since I already created this GitHub demo already here, like I created my GitHub repository on my local computer. I don't need to do this. But you see, we already did a git init. They did a git add readme. So maybe I do want to add a readme file. So let me actually copy that. Let me add a readme. I need to make a readme file. So touch .md. Then I can git add readme. Then I did my first commit. So I want to do git commit -m, first commit. And that made changes. So I already had it. Now the next thing I want to do, so I initialized a Git repo, I added my README. Now I want to connect it. I want to connect it. So this remote repository is what connects it takes your GitHub user and the repository that you have and connects that with your local machine. Then I'm going to create a git branch -m, and I'm going to push that onto my origin master. And when you see it, it should have everything already on there when I hit refresh. So all my branches up to date. If I hit the refresh button, you see I have the README. So that's how you can create it within your local machine. Make sense? Or you can do it the way how we've been doing it. That's not how you usually do it. You don't do the new repository like we were doing before. But if that works for you, go ahead and do it. So to create the new repository, I don't know why my computer's acting really slow. You can do the hello world. And then add some description. And then make it public. Then add a README. When you add a README, it's not going to give you that boilerplate code that I had to put it on, because you're supposed to add a README individually. And then I want to select an owner, because I have a lot of different organizations, and create a repo. And you see, it added the README. This is a new one that I created. Then you do the traditional copy the SSH, git clone, and then CD. Let me back up, make a directory. I could just put it in here. So I can just do git clone, then copy ls type, what was it, hello world. And you see the GitHub is on my computer. So you can do it that way. Like I said, we usually do it the other way. This way is how full stack wants us to teach it. So either way works. Cool. Everybody understand that step, Zach?
Yeah, I'm glad you did it both ways, because I was doing it the second way. And I was trying to learn it the first way. You were doing it by utilizing the command, but I'm glad you showed both ways. That way I can study both of them. Thank you.
No problem. But yeah, like it's confusing for me to do it the second way, but it's easy. But we usually do it with the git init way. That's the way I was taught. Sorry, DeWitt.
Yeah, where do you get the URL for the first one? Where you get the code?
Code SSH.
The first one, the first one, the way you did it the first time. Not this one.
Oh, so hopefully it allows me to go back. All right, so you don't need a URL for that, because what happens is, hold on, let me create another one. All right, so let me do this, and I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to say example 1, select my owner, some blah, and then public, don't add a README, and then create repo, right? It's going to give you 2 of these boxes. So say, for example, if I did not create a GitHub folder already, and I haven't created anything, I didn't do the git init. If I didn't do git init, what I can do is that I can do, so let's say, let's make directory hello world, directory some demo, right? Then I'm going to cd into some demo, right? I'm in this some demo. If I didn't do git init, I can literally just take this whole thing and copy it, and it creates that for me. I don't have to do the git init and add that way. I just like doing this way because it makes me understand what each command I'm doing. But if I do this, so let me actually create some files like index.html and then style.css, right? If I copy and paste this whole thing, that top block, and then I hit refresh, watch, you're going to see, oh, I didn't do, so I have to do git status. I didn't add my other files, so git add. Then I do git status. So now it's in our staging area. So now I'm going to do git commit -m first commit, and then git push. And you see it's there. So I also wanted to show you, let me create another one, demo 2, some description. But another thing too is that the upstream thing. So let's say whenever you guys are creating a GitHub repo, you're going to see that it says git push -u origin main. So remember, when you're creating branches, you always have to do git push upstream, whatever that thing is. This lets you tell GitHub like, hey, I created this branch. I want this remote repo to know what it is. So that's why the first initial push, when you first do git push, you have to do git push -u origin and main, or whatever the name of your branch is, because you have to let GitHub know what that branch is. If you don't, then you're going to get that error that says, oh, you need to push this upstream. So when you're checking out branches, always remember the first time when you have to do your first push, you have to do git push -u origin, your branch name, and then work your way through. And then you can just do git push without it. You have to let GitHub know about that branch. Cool. Any questions on that? So I have this branch that I created. Where is it? So, all right, let me go back to my repositories. This one, right? So I have this branch that I created. Now, after I created my repository, I've added a description. Now I want to commit changes. So you can edit things on here. I'm not that person where you edit things on here. I actually like to do things on my local computer and push it up. It's not best practice to do so, but you can do it up here. It's just that you have to pull down the changes. So let's say if I made changes here, right? So if I made changes here, I said, let's make some change here. And then this is making a commit for me on my computer. So if I preview, add some description, let's make some change, and then I hit the commit, this is going to have a commit message that says updated README, and I can add some additional things like I updated my README file, and then commit changes, right? So when I'm on this particular one, so where's it? ls cd git demo. Now I forgot which one was this one. CD hello
something the folder
I
name.
forgot which one was this. I think it was hello world.
Yeah.
All right, this one. All right. So if I go to git status, right, it says branch is up to date. So let me actually code. Right. In my README, it says add some description, right? And hello world. My branch is not up to date. So I want to get the updated changes from my repo. So does anybody know how I can do that?
Git pull.
Yep, you're going to pull down. And as you see, it came back. You saw it said it came up really quick. Let make some change here. And that's what happens. That's how every time when you create a branch and you want to merge it and you want to combine them together, once you merge it and it's on your local repo, you have to pull down, you have to check out your main and pull down the latest. Always constantly pull so you can update that your main branch. All right. How to create branches. So like I said, I don't do anything internally here, but you can create branches within GitHub. So what is it? It's here, and then view all branches. And then you can do a new branch and then type the branch name. Like I said, I don't do it in here. I do my branch here. And I do git checkout dashboard. It really depends on like what you learn first. Like checkout works for me because it just like when you go to the library, you pull out a book, you check out a book. So you check out the book. You can use git switch if it works for you. But when you look at documentation, that's the only one that they're really going to be using. So you're always going to see checkout. Just know that if you see checkout, checkout's another version of what that switch is. So we can create a branch with git checkout -b. So git checkout -b, the branch name. You don't have to do this uppercase. The reason why I do uppercase is because at my job, the tickets are all uppercase and they connect them. So it's like PS 109. And I have to connect them to whatever the tickets that they have. And so they all have to be uppercase. But you can do it lowercase. You can say some branch, right? And you're switched to some branch. And you see it switch here. You can also move branches here through VS Code. I can move main and I can move some branch. You can do that if that works for you, but it's either or. That's how you can switch certain things, right? So then when I'm in this branch, I want to make changes. So let me say I'm in some branch, right? You see it here. I want to add another file. So let me add a touch.index.js or index.html, and then a style.css, right? ls. Now this branch has these new things. So what I like to do is I look at this. So it has the same workflow of like how we had with the template. These are changes that I have not committed yet. So when I do git status, they're red. This is red. That means I have to add these files to my staging area. So look in this direction when I add. So if I do git add, a git add period. Now you see it says stage changes. Now my changes are within my staging area. I always go to source control and look through things. So then I do git status. Now they're green. That means I have in my staging area. The next thing I want to do is create a commit message. So git commit -m added files, right? So now all my files are ready to be pushed onto my remote repository. Since this is the first commit, I have to do git push -origin master. How I always do things, I do git branch to get a list of all my branches and I copy. That's how I do it. So I don't get any typos. And I do git push -u. So upstream, the same thing if you were trying to do git push and it gave you this error that says git push set upstream. It's the same thing. You can just do git push -u origin. And then whatever you copied from that branch. Now I can make my changes. So then when I go to GitHub and I go to code, you see some branch has some changes, and then I have some branch. And look at the two branches, they're both different. So now I want to go to my pull request. I want to confirm and create a pull request. Confirm and create a pull request, right? So now when you guys have collaborators, actually we should make someone a collaborator. Let me do Woody real quick because that's the only ones I know how to make. Only person's GitHub handle I know. So add Woody. I made your collaborator. You can accept that invite real quickly if you can. So usually when you make a collaborator, we can also make moderation options. So we can have interactions. We can do code reviews. but usually you're going to have like some kind of restriction. I don't want to put restrictions yet because I don't want you guys to be working on your project and then you're waiting on someone to accept your pull request and you're like, you know what, I can just finish this real in 2 seconds. We're not really working as a team that quickly, but usually what you're going to put strict rules so that you only can make, when you make a pull request, you have to have someone sign off on it. So compare pull request, right? This is a new pull request. If Woody ever signed, say I have no one else on the collaborator, but you're going to assign the person of your partner to it. And then once you assign your partner to it, you can add things to it. You can say the things that you created. I use the checklist system. I'll say like created HTML file and then created CSS file. Just so it can be helpful resource so they can look at it when they review it. And then you create the pull request and then you can add like an X. So when they come through and they're checking your pull request, they can just be like, oh, okay, they have all that stuff. Or they can add comments to it. I can add a rule. So that's the thing I was saying, like if I had a rule, I can say no push. So require pull request before merging and then have approval. So I need one approval. So I would probably add, so when you work on a team, you'll probably have like 3 and only 3 people have to review your code before you're able to submit it. I'm not going to do that now because I don't have anybody on it, but that's usually what you do. You would have rules. And then once that is done, you then merge the pull request. So files are merged. It's then deleted. So I'm going to then delete this branch. Oh, he added it. Thank you. My bad. All right, looks good to me. All right, so once that person's approved the pull request, you then delete the branch. And then it gives you the opportunity to restore the branch, but we've already merged it. So if I go back to this hello world, you see it's merged here. But if I'm here, I'm still on some branch, right? I want to add my changes. I want to add my changes to my main branch. So if I do get status, this is good, but I want to switch to my main branch. So like I said, you can either switch here and go here, or you can do get switch or get checkout. So you can do get switch, whatever the branch name is, or you can do get checkout. Either way works, it's the same thing. And then some branch, oh, sorry, get checkout main, my bad. Now I'm on main branch. Remember, main branch doesn't have that same information that I had on my other branch. So the thing I need to do in order to update it is get pull. Once I pull it, you see the index.html and readme files all come. Makes sense? And we're actually way over time. Any questions on that? So that's basically the typical workflow of what you're going to be doing. Also, you guys already have project boards, right? So what was that project that we created? I'll go to projects and then personal websites. So what you're going to do with your repositories that are linked, all you have to do with your teams, and we'll probably do start teams on Monday, just make it easier that way. And then once we go to your personal website, so where is this? Where's my repo? I don't think I have any repos attached to this. It's my personal website. I have a lot of repositories, my bad. This one, right? So it has a project board assigned to it. So what I want to do is go to settings, and this is what you're going to do with your partner. Add a collaborator. You're going to get their GitHub handle, add people based on their email or their GitHub handle, so they can be a collaborator to your project. Once you guys have our collaborators on the same project, once you completed all of that, you're then going to go to your project boards, and both you and your partner, or 3 of you all, or how many you all are there in a group, you're going to create tickets for this new project 11. So for this, or block 12. Yeah, so you're going to go to block 12 and you're going to create tickets on how to create this contact form. You're going to assign certain tickets to whatever your partner is. So if you have, and this is recorded, so if you have to go, you can just recatch the video. Yeah, so if you, where is it? Project board. So when you go to project board, I can assign a task to whoever's attached to this. So I can say, oh, it's at the bottom. Sorry. Yeah, so you add the item, and then I can say like create form tag or something like that. You create the form tag, and then you can convert this into an issue. And then I'm going to say hello world, right? And then I can assign, so it's an issue. I can assign people. See, Woody's right here. I can assign him and tell him, oh, don't archive. I can tell him, do the form tag or whatever. Do the form tag or something like that. And then comment. And now Woody's assigned to this label, this issue. So this is an enhancement. You can add that to be extra. And then it's in your to-do template. So then when I go back to my form, I exit out, you'll see their little picture there, and then they can move these things along the way. So that's what you're going to do. Each person should have a ticket on your own project, and they should be assigned a task so they can complete, if that makes sense. Yeah, we're going to do this on Monday. So we ran out of time. So yeah, we're going to start this on Monday. And then the personal project will probably be due the following Monday. Cool. Any questions on that? I know that was like really, really quick, but you guys should know the Git commands that we had. So remember, we're following the same template. The things you should know are, what is it? The Git status. Always use Git status to check. Git add. Git add dot. Git commit -m, and then whatever the commit message is. And then git push. When the first time it's your first checkout branch, you're going to do git push.u origin. I like to do git branch and then copy whatever branch I have. You can delete the branch on this repo by doing on your local by doing git. If you're nitpicking, don't like a lot of branches, you can do git branch -d, and then you can copy some branch and that will delete it. And so now if I type git branch, I only have main. If you're just a nitpicking, you don't like all those branches on your things, but that's typically what the workflow that you're going to be doing. Cool. Any questions, comment, concerns before we wrap up? Sorry for going a little bit over. Right. Oh, sorry, Candace.
Is there a way to commit more than one thing, or do you have to commit them all separately?
Yeah, so what do you mean by that? Like commit individual files or?
Apparently, I had a lot of files that were not properly committed, and I'm having to redo everything.
So when you did did you do git add with the dot?
Yes.
Or did you do git add? Like you can do git add and like do like file names like index.html and stuff like that. You can do individual files, but I'll look into your issue. I don't want to further confuse you. Any other issues? Elham.
Can you commit more than one line?
Oh, is that what you were asking, Candace? Like, if I want to do like a git commit and like add like a big commit message?
Yes, because apparently I just really screwed this project up, and I have like all my files that need to get to GitHub.
All right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so if I do git checkout -b and I'm gonna do a new branch, another one, right? And then if I do git branch, another one. So I'll create touch app.js. And then within the app.js, I'm going to, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. I'll just do console.log. Hello. Hello world. And then that's saved. So let me actually also do the HTML template. Save that. Let's say, all right. So when you do get status, right? I have two things that have changed. So when you do get status, what do you have? Do you have two red, or do you have one are all green and then with some red?
Mine are all green.
Oh, so that means you just need to push it.
Okay.
Yeah, so once they're in the, like, if you go to the source control and you see the changes, these are unstaged. So I can add individual files. So say for example, I just want to add one file, I can say add app.js only, right? And then I can do git commit. So you see app.js is in the stage area, but index it's not. So I can do git commit -m, add, or let me do a full commit. So git commit. And I hate doing it this way, but you can write like a longer message. So you can say, this is a full message for commit when you don't use -m. And here are the things, like at my job, this is what they require me to do. So here are the things I want to do or what I did, blah, blah, and then keep entering. And then once I do that, it's a WQ. QA. Oh, sorry. We'll see. Oh, QA. All right. What is it? I hate doing, or press. Oh, QA with the exclamation point. All right. So that adds all that stuff to it. And so I do git push -u, and then the branch, which was forgot the branch name. Another one. So git push -u origin, and then the branch name. And so it adds that one thing to our GitHub repo. And so when I go back to this personal website, oh, this personal website, sorry, hello world, that's the repo I want. I see my issues, pull request, wait, let me see, its status. Yeah, so I have my one file committed, and then let me add the other one. Then git commit -m. Now, see, I have another one. The branch is ready to be pulled. Compare pull requests, add whatever you want to add, create pull request. But yeah, there's a different ways. You can add like so when you mean by different commits, so each commit should be different. A commit should not, you shouldn't do multiple commits into one commit. You want to have different commits for every change that you're creating. So it can be, so we know what issue. So if you have a bug, we can revert it to that previous commit or change it to that particular commit. We want to make sure that the commits are in sequence of each other. So it may seem tedious to have a variety of different commits all at once, but it's just a way to keep track of what you're doing. So we have these series of commits and you follow along like, all right, I messed up on commit 2, revert to the commit before that previous commit so I can add it. So you can add multiple commits before you even do a pull request, but you can also, what's the name? You can also do just one commit if you'd like. Does that make sense? All right, and then merge pull request, and then you're all done. And it's just that follow that same technique over and over again. All right.
Okay. And that QA exclamation point. What did you do after you typed that?
It's the colon QA exclamation point. They changed it. You should just be colon QA, at least for
Okay.
me. I don't know why it's changing, but I personally just like using git commit -m. When you get into like, when you get to jobs and stuff, like when you get into like certain career paths, they require you to have better, more, like, they're strict on their commit messages. They want a lot of boilerplate when adding code to your commit messages. So they would require you to do like a whole template of like all these changes that you created, as opposed to git commit -m, which just does a one line where you can just do like feature added file or something like that. So git commit -m is just for one little line. Git commit, you can write like a summary and put it within that block. I just
Okay.
personally, it's either or. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, it seems confusing now, but Git is definitely going to get easier to maintain as you guys work through. You just guys need constant practice. Remember, figure out what works for you. If you like Git switch, work with that. If you like Git checkout-b, work with that. If you like whatever works for you, just use it. So we can go to our GitHub repo. So where is it? 230302. And then this GitHub cheat sheet. So utilize it. Like I said before, don't memorize anything within GitHub. Take this cheat sheet and just try to work through things. So git init, git clone, either way, these two ways you can set it up. That's why we have these two options. Once you do that, you do your git status. Constantly always use git status, then git add. You can add an individual file. You can add one file. I'm not going to get into reset, but we'll get into reset later. And then you can do git commit -m and a descriptive message. Check your branches, git branch. Just constantly use these. These are your bread and butter. You have git checkout. You can also use git switch, and you can use git checkout -b to create a branch and switch to at the same time. And I think it's git switch -c to create a branch and switch at the same time. So it's a lot of different commands for the same things. Just what works for your brain, utilize it and work with it. You guys are responsible for your own, whatever works for you. Don't follow anybody else. If I do something that confuses you, just do your way, okay? All right. Any other questions?
That is it for me. Hopefully this
Okay.
works. And I'll put the correct URL in there this time. Thank you.
Let's have a good night. I think someone had an issue. I wasn't sure. I guess not. Oh, and just heads up, if you guys need help, open support hours are available. Take advantage of that. I know it's a little intimidating, but the more people go, the more help you get. So you get more demos, you get more hands-on learning as a group, as opposed to working in solo, like in the solo environment. So if you want more group office hours, if more people go, then the mentors can accommodate to that. Like they can do a revamp on lectures. They have like more time than I have. So just take advantage of those opportunities. All right. You all have a wonderful night. If there's no questions, see you later.